It's Chris Smith time. Oh, hello everybody. It's me, Chris Smith, and today I'm here to review a book that I just read that I got for my birthday. It is Texas, an oral history of daytime TV's answer to Dallas. Now, most of you are probably thinking, I've never heard of Texas. Well, there's a reason for that. Texas was a spinoff from the hit show Another World, the NBC soap opera that lasted from 1964 to 1999. And during the late 70s, after Another World had already gone into to become an hour, they expanded the show to a whopping 90 minutes, which was crazy. Even as a child, I remember Another World would just go on and on forever, and people would dial the phone. They had rotary dials, and they would use a lot of nines just to take extra time. At least that's what it seemed to me when I was a little child. But the ratings were suffering when Another World was 90 minutes, because who has 90 minutes a day to give to a soap opera 5 days a week? And toward the end of the 90-minute period, they had been developing a show called Texas that was created by Bill and Joyce Corrington. It was originally supposed to be an after the Civil War soap opera called Reunion, but then NBC got scared and decided they didn't want to do a period piece soap opera, which I think would have been really cool, because that's never been done as a daytime show. A soap opera that's set after the Civil War? My goodness. Though the costumes alone, I'm sure, would be a lot. But so anyway, the creators of Reunion, they were told to turn it into an epic show like Dallas. And it wasn't really a copycat, but it was sort of like a big, epic, sprawling Texas show, so they called it Texas, and it was set in Houston. Well, Texas premiered August 4th, 1980, and it lasted until December 31st, 1982, and it got canceled. It went off the air the same day as the soap opera The Doctors, which was also on NBC. So Texas was only on like a little under 2.5 years, which is more than my favorite Generations, and is longer than some soap operas. So Rituals was only on 1 year, and so you can love a show no matter how long it lasts, even shows that last 13 episodes or less, like Paper Dolls with Morgan Fairchild, the primetime soap that I still miss. But I digress. We're here to talk about Texas. Now, this book is written by Tom Lisanti. He's an award-winning author, and he wrote, which I talked about this before, the book Ryan's Hope, An Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap. And he's written 10 other books about film and television in the 60s and 70s Hollywood. So it's very interesting that he writes about Hollywood and writing and creating shows. But I devoured that Ryan's Hope book when that had been published. So I just happened to see online on Alan Locker's show, The Locker Room, on YouTube, that Tom Lisanti was on with a few of the actors who had been in Texas. And I looked into it and I said, my goodness, somebody wrote a book about Texas. I mean, I love my soap opera books. I have a shelf full of books about soap operas. I love things about creating shows, making shows, writing them, the actors, what they have to say. And Texas is a tell-all book about this short-lived show. I think it lasted 500 and some episodes. Now, I wasn't a regular Texas viewer. At the time, I thought Texas was a little hayseed for me. No offense to people living in Texas, and certainly none who were on the show Texas. But, I'm not big on cowboy hats, boots, honky-tonk bars, I almost said seaweed on the floor, sawdust on the floor. That's just not me. But Texas had a lot of good things going for it, and I was familiar enough with it that I knew what was going on at the time with Texas. It had been as I said, it had been a spinoff from Another World, and they took Beverly McKinsey, pictured here, who played Iris Carrington, Mac Corey's daughter on Another World. It took her character and spun it off into a story where she had been a villain on Another World, sort of always fighting with Rachel, and very jealous over his love for her father's love for Rachel. And Matt Corey, of course, was the father. And Rachel Corey, who if you watched Another World, you know her. She was the matriarch of the show by the time it ended. But it was sort of a triangle between Mac and his daughter and Rachel. Not a love triangle, but a vying for affection triangle. And Iris did all sorts of dirty deeds. Well, they took Iris's character and spun her off. But here's the fun thing. They didn't ask Beverly McKinsey if she wanted to go, if she was interested. They're just like, you're going. And she was like, oh, and they'd already created this show around her. So she asked for the moon, including the show was called Texas, starring Beverly McKinsey in the opening credits, which is unprecedented, really, on a daytime show. And she got all sorts of other perks too. And they had to give them to her because they had built this show around her. And then they were like, oh, shoot. Always ask first, kids, if you're creating a show for somebody. But so, Texas what's interesting about this book, and what's also a shame is that a lot of the people who were on Texas, I mean, this show went off over 40 years ago. So a lot of the people are no longer with us, including Beverly McKinsey. But her son, Scott McKinsey, who's a director in daytime, he speaks a lot on his mother's behalf and tells stories that he knew. And then there are enough living Texas alumni. Well, anyway, enough people who were involved with Texas that they could tell the story of not just what happened story-wise, but behind the scenes. And there were all sorts of people that you love who were on Texas, including David Forsythe, who went on to be on Search for Tomorrow and then play Dr. John Hudson on Another World. I always liked Tina Johnson, who was on Texas as Lurleen, and then she went to Search for Tomorrow as Rhonda Sue Huckabee. Carla Borelli, Jerry Lanning. Was it Lanning? Yes. All sorts of people. Now my mind is a blank. Karen, is it Karen Richmond? Who played the new Gidget in the 80s. She was on the show as Elena. But yes, so even though we have people who are not with us anymore, they still tell a full story. Now, is this book for everybody? If you're not into television, it's probably not for you. If you're not into soap operas, or at least Texas, the soap opera, I don't know if you would be that interested. Not a lot of dirt gets told, but a little bit of dirt gets told, because a lot of the people that Tom interviews, they mostly have fond memories. But once in a while you do get a little story and it's like, oh, that's how it was. So you have to dig for the dirt if you're looking for an expose. Let's just say that. John McCafferty was in it as Billy Joe, and that's Karen Richmond who played Elena, and Ken Shriner who played Scotty Baldwin. On General Hospital, they stole him from General Hospital by offering him a lot of money, and he went over to Texas, and they never knew how to use the, what to do with the character. So he sort of bounced from storyline to storyline and love interest to love interest, and nothing really clicked until at the end of his contract they didn't renew it. Then he went back to General Hospital, and that was right around the time that Luke and Laura were getting married, and Scotty came back. He had been off the show, and he caught the bouquet at their wedding reception. You all remember that. Part of the problem with Texas's low ratings was that it was up against General Hospital, and it was up against Guiding Light. But mostly General Hospital was what was killing the show, because all the young people were watching General Hospital. And they were obsessed with Luke and Laura, and the whole Ice Princess storyline was going on. This was, of course, before Luke and Laura got married, but after Luke raped Laura, which they pretended didn't really happen, but then later dealt with it and said it did, and we're sorry. And Luke was very sorry, but still, it was an icky story. So Texas sort of languished at the bottom of the ratings with The Doctors and Edge of Night. I think Ryan's Hope was sort of low too in those days. But they eventually moved Texas to an 11 a.m. time slot. Luckily, my affiliate back in West Virginia always carried Texas throughout the run of the show. Some of those shows they didn't carry, like Edge of Night, we didn't get. And for a while, we didn't get Search for Tomorrow after it moved to NBC. Which was another thing that sort of hurt Texas, because when Search for Tomorrow moved from CBS to NBC, then NBC had a lot of soap operas, and they really didn't need The Doctors or Texas, so they got rid of them. And they were developing Santa Barbara anyway. So what's interesting, and I took this on my trip because I went to visit my mother and my sister in Virginia. Look, I only have like 10 pages left, but I've read enough that I can review the book, certainly. My friends at work threw me a Betty Boop party because I love Boop the musical. And I used one of the little things that was in the cupcakes, or the brownies, that Caitlin Burry made. And it's a little Betty Boop. And I used her as my bookmark. I read this book the whole time I was in Virginia. And it is wonderful to just read. And they go to bed very early there. Like my mother and sister sometimes would be in bed by 10 o'clock, much to my mother's chagrin because she was always a late night person. But now that my sister goes to bed early, my mother has to as well. So then I would be there in the back bedroom reading, and I was fine with that. I loved it. The creators, Bill and Joyce, they didn't give them very long to write the show. I don't know that they lasted 6 months. Maybe they lasted 6 months, and then they got rid of them like at the 5-month mark of what was airing. And wouldn't you know it, right after they had let them go, their shows that were still airing, the ratings were going up. You've got to give daytime shows longer than 6 months. You've got to give writers longer than 6 months. I mean, I know that primetime shows you can have a few episodes and then get canceled. But if you're doing a 5-day-a-week show on daytime, you need at least a year to see how this show is doing. And the second writers, Dorothy Ann Purser and Samuel Radcliffe, they didn't give them very long either. And apparently their stories were really working well, according to this book. But then they got fired. And then they hired a novelist based on the fact that he had written a 1969 sort of like a spy novel or something. his name was Paul Rader, and I guess the executive producer read his book on the plane and wanted to hire him. That's what I always wanted to happen with The Unfortunates by C.A. Smythe, because I think I would have made a great head writer, and still would. But oh, the work and a daytime show, that would kill me. That's 250 episodes a year. I mean, you're not going to be good 250 episodes a year. But anyway, then the last writer, and they gave Paul Rader like over a year, but the ratings were still low, and they canceled the show, not to give away the ending, but it's canceled because it's not on now. And one of the actresses on the show, Pamela Long, who played Ashley, she became the head writer because she always had lots of ideas for the show. So this is very interesting, that an actress on a show that becomes the head writer of the show. So there's all sorts of fun things in Texas. The book, I'm not that thrilled about Texas, the state, because I don't live there, so I don't know about it. And again, I don't like boots and cowboy hats and tumbleweed and prairie dogs. No, their prairie dogs are fine. That's from Rent. Anyway, Texas. I recommend this book if you love soap operas and television history. You'll love An Oral History of Daytime's Answer to Dallas. Okay, and remember, it's by Tom Lisanti. Marco got it for me on Amazon. It's where fine books are sold. And I will see you the next time that it's Christmas time. Happy reading. Goodbye.